It takes 6 to 10 hours to learn the technical side, but it takes lifetime to learn to adjust the mental side. Hey there, Tamir from Fibonacci-Traders.com here with the daily market recap, and what a day we had. So without further ado, please hit the like, subscribe, and let's see the charts. SPY another day, another roller coaster ride, managing to close as a doji of the 400, barely holding the 400 area. We need to see if this trend line will hold as support. This trend line, we know it. It goes all the way back to January of 2022 as very strong resistance. Now it needs to hold as support, and then we might get some kind of a bounce. Otherwise, we have this trend line and all the levels to the downside to follow as future support. If we look to the intraday price action, we can clearly see higher highs, lower lows, aka the megaphone broadening formation. And when we see broadening formation, it is a very difficult price action to trade. But if you are a member in our Discord, you know that we trade it to the upside and to the downside. All we have to do is know price action, aka candlestick analysis, in-depth candlestick analysis, and the relationship between price action and trend lines and Fibonacci. No other indicators. QQQ managing to close above the 293 with a doji. Doji, it's the most significant signal in candlestick analysis price action for an indecision. And when market cannot decide and there is indecision between bulls and bears, we certainly cannot decide whether to go long or short. All we have to do is wait for the next candle to show us the way. 293 is holding, needs to hold because it was a very significant level of support and resistance throughout 2022. Now needs to hold, otherwise 288 and maybe 274, this trend line will get retested. Dow Jones, multi-top, triple top. Basically, bulls gave up for now, trying to break above the 343. 330 is holding. If this 330 will fail to hold, this multi-top will get validated towards the downside, and then we have all the levels to the downside to manage our risk. IWM, doji of the 188, and again 188, very important level of support, needs to hold because it was a very strong resistance. Only by looking left. We have our eyes, we know to draw lines. Now we have to look left and find support and resistance. We need to train our eyes, and the more screen time we have, the more easy it will become. It's never easy. It's the most difficult job I have ever done. But if you have a process, then you will be consistent. Now doji, let's see if we can get a bounce towards this trend line. This trend line will be a tough one for the bulls because it held price, as you can see, all the way from September. Held price until it broke down, and maybe, everything is maybe, but with high probability and knowing in-depth candlestick analysis, we can with high probability know where price will head next. A day closing above today's doji will go retest this trend line and maybe going up. A close below this doji and the way down basically all the way to 181 and maybe 177. VIX cooling off, and we know more than 99% of all gaps historically on the VIX are getting filled. So this gap at the 21.20 area, 21.30, will get filled. This trend line probably will get retested as support, and then we get a bounce. SMH 231 is next. We have this double top as we talked about. Bulls gave up on this trend line, and on the 255 bears came in full control. 231 needs to hold, otherwise with high probability this trend line will get retested. Why? Because this trend line, only by looking left, is holding for now the higher lows. Bitcoin, as we can see, trend lines are the true support resistance for price action. Let's see if bulls have enough power to finally break up and above, and if they will give up, this trend line and the yellow one will get retested. Ethereum, bulls are not giving up on this for now. 1680 to 1720, 1730 is a very strong resistance area. Look left, resistance, resistance, resistance. If bulls have enough power in their hands and they will manage to break up and above, this trend line will get retested, and maybe then we'll get a bull run all the way to 2080, but no one knows. All we have to do is follow price, use levels and trend lines to manage risk. For now, nothing on Ethereum. Moving sideways between the 1550 and this area over here. Breaking to the downside, then we can go short. Breaking to the upside, then we can go long. Natural gas tried to go back above the 236 area. Look at this. Support, now resistance. Another day or two of failing to break to the upside, and this slide towards 167, in my opinion, will become validate. But this is only my opinion. Everything you see in here on this video and on other videos on my channel are for educational purposes only. Never follow anyone on social media. Never follow blindly. Learn. Educate. Take ideas. But always do your own due diligence. Never follow blindly. Paid or free services. AAPL almost closed this gap with a doji. Now let's see if tomorrow, or Friday, we can get some kind of a wick closing, tail wick, closing this gap, and then bounce to the upside. NVDA, great earnings, 8% gains after hours, and as we can see, trend lines are the true support resistance for price action. Now all we have to do is take Fibonacci, swing low, swing high. Bulls needs to hold above, break above the 215 towards this yellow trend line, and maybe only then towards 250. Meta, basically inside this gap, doji after doji. Nothing special on Meta, no long or short idea for now. Let's see, below the 170, only look left. Where price is now? 170. Why? Because this area was resistance. Resistance, now holding a support. Breaking below. Next support is filling the gap. Microsoft trying to hold the 253 with this short-term trend line, breaking to the downside, failing to hold 246, 240, and maybe this trend line is next. But on the positive side, we have several open gaps to the upside on Microsoft. Shopify, earnings or no earnings, 2 consecutive dojis, of this trend line. And if you're following me on Twitter and you saw my previous videos, you know all these levels, you know all these trend lines. 2 consecutive dojis, gap to the upside, gap to the downside. We might get some tail, closing this gap and then bouncing back towards closing this gap over here. Tesla, of course, cannot do any technical analysis video without Tesla. Basically, if you can see, since beginning of February, moving sideways between the 187 to the 214. So if you don't have any position yet on Tesla, you need to wait. And again, not advised to take any trade or investing, but follow price. Breaking below, short. Breaking above, long. And then look at the levels, look left to manage risk according. Support resistance areas. Netflix, after breaking to the downside, is 344 area, now heading towards filling the gap at the 325. Gaps are like magnets to price action. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit a like, subscribe, share with friends, and don't forget to check my Fibonacci Traders Academy. 22 videos, 20 minutes or less, to help us take a step further and become better traders, technical and mental side. Until the next video, stay safe.